Man, who are you, Nardwar? I grew up and I looked at my Tim Duncan jersey and I said, I'm going to play at Wake Forest. I got in and I said, I am making that team. That's not what happened at all. Everyone I've ever talked to personally, even if you have a dream, you have a moment of doubt. I love basketball, but does it still love me? Go to the best school, get the right job, do this kind of stuff. And it's almost like life at every point has knocked me off that. This might be the best story in my life, actually. All of a sudden, there's a big van and immigration officers. They arrested me for being a illegal immigrant. College is low-key like bigger than the pros in the Philippines. I saw an article the why Troy Rike is a better fit for the national team than Jordan Clarkson.
Wow.
Like, wow. If I had to go back and give myself advice back then, get 1% towards your dream every day. I think a lot of people think you either have to be Kobe Bryant or you're a failure. I was listening to a little bit of Gary Vee.
If you get home at 10 p.m., you gotta work. You gotta work till 1 a.m. It's just no excuse.
I can confidently say this is the best interview I've ever done.
I don't know if these have anything to do with you or not, but I'm just going to name them out there. Cards and Comics Central and Classic Materials, Sports and Collectibles.
Man, who are you, Nardwar? Cards and Comics, if not the first store I went to, definitely the store I went to the most as a kid. Like that's my whole childhood right there. And then Classic Materials, if I'm not mistaken, that one is a new one at Stonestown. Like that's right near Daly City. If anyone's Filipino, they know exactly what Stonestown is. They know what Daly City is, but they got a shop in there that's new. So I'm friends with those guys. Yeah. Wow, man. I was not ready for all. Now I'm super excited. I don't even know what's coming anymore.
What can you tell me about Westmore High School?
Oh my God, Nardwar, stop it. Westmore High School, besides St. Ignatius, I think is probably my favorite high school in the world because they changed my life. We lost to them. We were like one of the top teams in the state. We lost to them. I missed the game-winning shot, and they were just a team full of 5'10" Filipinos. So it was like literally international news that happened. And then someone just commented, I'll never know who it is, but they commented, hey, that Troy Rike guy is Filipino too. Like that's kind of funny or something like that. Right after that, I started being put on all these Facebook pages. People in the Philippines became aware of who I was, and that like changed the whole trajectory of my life. So shout out to Westmore High School. You changed everything for me, even though that was like, it's dramatic to say it's the lowest point in my life, but at the time in high school, you know, it seems like it is. But for that to happen and then it turned into everything that happened now is just crazy.
One thing I've learned about being Filipino is that our people are so prideful, especially when it comes to basketball. Someone has some Filipino blood in them, they claim them, right? You see it with like Jordan Clarkson. You're seeing it with Jalen Green, who's only like a quarter, but they're claiming him like, yo, he's ours. He's ours.
Yeah, it's insane. It's in the card hobby too. Lameem James is Filipino, bro.
Yeah.
Like, I swear there was even someone who like calling me out or something or making fun of me. Nothing crazy. And he's like, oh, shoot, you're Filipino? Oh, I take all that back, bro. We got you. Like, it was like all of a sudden, it's like, no matter what, we got to stick together. So Filipinos are ride or die, no matter what. They're super, super passionate. I see it more even being out here. But I remember like after all that, like when I first got out here, the reception I got, especially in high school, I was like, I average like 9 points per game. This is way too much. CNN and everything, like Troy Rike is finally in the country. Like they love basketball. Like people out here, it's like celebrities. Like I'm not even on that level, but like when Jordan Clarkson came here, or, you know, we had Donovan Mitchell, all these guys who aren't even Filipino. When Donovan Mitchell, they just go crazy.
Going back to your high school days, what can you tell me about the transition from your junior year to your senior year?
Man, can I pay you, bro? This is great. This is so great. The transition from my junior to senior year. So basically, I've always been tall. So I was always at least all right at basketball, but I faced a lot of adversity. Like my first 3 years, basically, I got injured. I missed my whole freshman year. Sophomore year was barely healthy. Junior year, I sat the bench. The biggest game of the year, we played at University of San Francisco. 0 minutes. Like so disappointed. I was just barely playing. I don't know how to say it besides that. And I just decided I was going to work really hard and see what happened in my senior year. It's still looking back, it's kind of weird, but just everything clicked. I made all WCAL. I was far from a star, still averaging like 10 points per game, nothing crazy, but that jump was really big for me. And then, you know, senior year was some of the best times I had on the basketball court. We won like the section title. We were 1 win away from winning our league. It was way different. Like my junior year did not go well for me at all. And then senior year, things started to click for me basketball wise.
What made you ultimately go with Wake Forest?
There's a couple factors. Like one, people say, oh, that's so far away. In the Bay Area, I feel like options are kind of limited. Maybe no disrespect to anyone, but it's like it's Cal and Stanford. USF's a good school, especially if you're doing nursing or something like that. But I was like, okay, I don't want to go to Cal or Stanford. I'm not a nurse. I can go to school in LA, but even there, for whatever reason, I didn't gravitate towards the UCs. So that really like limited my options. So I was like, okay, well, distance is already out the door, basically. Like right off the bat, distance wasn't an issue. So I was like, okay, what's the best school I can go to? I wanted to do business, and Wake Forest had a top 10 business school. So that was basically it. My parents, it's not negotiable. So I had schools, I had offers at the very least to be on the team at Cal Lutheran, those type of places, which I'm sure are great schools. I would have been happy to go there, but for my parents, it just wasn't an option. Basketball or not, you're going to the best school you can. So then when I got into Wake, it was like, okay, you're going there. To be quite honest, the story would be better. Like I grew up and I looked at my Tim Duncan jersey and I said, I'm going to play at Wake Forest. I was a big fan of Tim Duncan and Chris Paul. Those were my favorite players. Or even I got in and I said, I am making that team. That's not what happened at all. My parents low key made me kind of pursue, because, I was added to the team late. It was just kind of more so me talking to the coaches and seeing if they had an extra spot. I was like, this is never going to work. But they said, hey, we like your film. We'd like you to come practice with the team. And I was like, okay, they just need an extra body or something. And I showed up, and then I ended up being on the team for 4 years. So it was really something that was out of nowhere. I chose Wake Forest, the school, knowing that might be the end of my basketball career. And then it ended up working out. And here I am today. I've expected none of this. If you told me my junior year of high school, like you're going to have this senior year. And then if you told me my senior year, you're going to play here. And then if you told me in college, you're going to be in the Philippines, I would have believed none of it.
It's definitely one of those things where it's like everything's just going with the flow, right? And then taking everything as it comes.
Go with the flow is perfect. If you ask anyone to describe my personality, I think that would be it. I'm sure that's a negative at times, but also part of me is like, yeah, let's give this a shot. Why not? Like, why can't I make it at Wake Forest? Let's see what happens. It ended up working out. Even with this card stuff, right? How quickly this escalated for me, like what's going on now. I remember even thinking when I finished my last season, I was thinking like, okay, I think I'm going to enter the PBA draft. I don't know if this is even going to work, all this kind of stuff. I was like, man, I guarantee you my life a year from now is going to be so much different than I expected. And now YouTube and sports cards is such a big part of my life. I'd like kind of video editing and stuff growing up, but I never saw myself having a YouTube channel, honestly.
Chipotle or Qdoba?
Chipotle, 100%. Is this the John Collins story? That's a funny story. I'll keep it short. Basically, John Collins, we played together in college, and I would drive him to weights and stuff like that. And it was actually our other friend in the car. He was a freshman, right? No car, no nothing. We're like, let's go get food. We'll take you to get food afterwards. And he really wanted to go to Chipotle. And then my friend was just like, I'm kind of feeling Qdoba though, just being that kind of guy. And for whatever reason, like John is such a nice guy. JC is the greatest guy in the world. We've stopped to get gas or something, and he was saying this. He starts kicking the car. He's like, we're going to Chipotle. I don't want to go to Qdoba. And it's just one of those moments. I guess it stands out to me because having that interaction with an NBA player, that's a friend's moment, right? That's a story you and your friends would laugh about. The fact that we have that is really funny. He beat me in FIFA and took my team hyper dunks, and we bet on it. That was another funny one we had. There's a ton of funny stories we had together. That was a great experience.
One of the things when you're playing D1 ball, you never know who you're playing with if they end up in the NBA.
He didn't know either. I remember talking to him like when he was a freshman, and he's like, honestly, man, I didn't think I was going to play Division I basketball my senior year. I remember he said that. Like he got his offers a little later. He was like a low 3-star recruit. So he was really a late bloomer. And he would say this too. His freshman year, he could not guard me. And I'm not good. Even to this day, I'm especially offensively in terms of creating, I'm not good at all. I got him kicked out of practice. He was a freshman. He didn't have like kind of that awareness. He would kick it out, and I just got hot. I shot it, jab step, this kind of thing. And coach was like yelling at him, like, you can't guard this. Who are you going to guard in the ACC? You can't guard this guy. So coming in a freshman year, he was a raw prospect, a 3-star guy. But then as soon as I showed up back for that sophomore year, it was just different. Like you just saw, we were like, oh no, this is the guy right here. His senior year of high school to being in the league.
Maybe that moment in practice, he took it back in the offseason. He's like, man, I got to step my game up.
He for sure had a realization moment, because it was one of those things, anyone who's played organized sport, coach was like, all right, Troy made 3 threes. He hits another one. You got to run and touch the top number at the top of the stadium. And being the guy, I still feel so bad. It may not be an open shot. I can shoot it whenever I want. It may not go in. It may not be open. So he passed me. I said, I'm hot. I'm shooting this B word again. And I like caught it on the side and just kind of like flicked it up and went in. He turned to coach. He was like, And he goes, go and touch the effing sign. And then he ran to go touch it. Coach didn't expect to have to make him do that. Let's just make sure he's locked in, doesn't really closes out. I hit a lucky shot. He's like, well, I guess he has to run. So he starts kind of like walking, and then coach kicks him out of practice, get out. But that was actually a big moment for our team. Coaches do that, like a test their team type of practice. And then something clicked after that. We all started playing a lot better. So I'll take credit, for everything. Yeah, I'll take credit.
What are some of your best stories playing with NBA guys?
This might be the best story in my life, actually. This was my sophomore year of college. I was facing that battle that I think everyone's faced probably at some point in their life if they played competitive sports. I was like, man, what am I doing? All my friends are having fun in college. I remember distinctly it was that day. It was like the big slip and slide party or something like that. And when you're a freshman, sophomore in college, that's the biggest deal in the world. Yeah. I was like, oh, I'm missing this. I'm not even playing. Like I got to go to dumb practice. Not even practice, excuse me. It was really annoying because it wasn't even practice. We had a recruit on campus and it was Harry Giles. And they're like, okay, you guys got to go and play pickup with him at the gym. I was like, this is so dumb. This isn't even practice. That's all I knew. You're playing pickup with Harry Giles at the arena. So I was like, all right, I show up, I walk in there, and then I see on the court, Chris Paul, Tim Duncan, Harry Giles, and also Mo Bamba. I guess it was less impressive at the time because I didn't really care who Harry Giles and Mo Bamba were, but still seeing Chris Paul and Tim Duncan, I was like, what is going on? And I was like a little late. And they're like, you guys have next. I'm like, me? They're like, yeah. So we got on the court and it's 5 of us and we're playing pickup against Chris Paul and Tim Duncan, Harry Giles, Mo Bamba. And then it was another recruit or something, but I'm sure he's probably in the NBA now too. I forget who it was. I'll never forget that. My favorite moment from it too was I set a screen on Chris Paul. I just did a little pick and pop, made a mid-range, and Chris Paul pulled over Tim Duncan and was coaching him. I could just come out a little stronger on this one. I was like, they're talking about how to defend me. I guess it never really set in either because I didn't know it was coming. I was already on the floor by the time I realized what was happening. Afterwards, we came back to the cafeteria or whatever, and there was no one there. That's how big of the party was. Everyone was at this party. It was literally just the basketball team in the cafeteria. And we were all talking. We're like, oh, bro, that was so cool. And I remember I looked on my phone and saw everyone there. I'm all over the place. I'm even getting biblical here. I was like, this is really like a sign of where I'm supposed to be. It was just the craziest day. I got to meet my idols. I'll never forget it. And I've never understood. I guess I hear it in interviews sometimes. It's like, I was on my journey. I didn't even think twice. And I'm like, everyone I've ever talked to personally, even if you have a dream, you have a moment of doubt. I don't know anyone personally who's never, ever doubted their dream. And I've for sure doubted it. I love basketball, but does it still love me? Like, that's really how I felt at the time. And to have that happen, the timing of that was just crazy. I really feel whatever God meant to be, I felt it was meant to be like that day.
I'm sure you're a firm advocate of like everything happens for a reason. You just got to stay the course. Have you ever been in a position where you felt like you were going to get a job, but it didn't work out, but it ended up actually working out in your favor?
What are the odds? Fast forwarding a little bit, but my Wake Forest career wasn't too eventful anyway, so I guess it doesn't matter too much. Senior year, it was my dream. You mentioned growing up in San Francisco. I wanted to work in tech. I had a lot of friends, family. I really wanted to go to LinkedIn. This job process takes a while, right? It's literally months, stage to stage to stage. So I applied to LinkedIn early and I kept progressing and being the cocky guy I am, like, I'm going to get it, not applying to all this other stuff. I made it to the final round. Long story short, I didn't get the job at the very end when I had all my eggs in that basket. So then, especially my parents yelling, well, you got to get a job. Immigrant parents, right? We paid all this money for college. You're not going to get a job. So I applied to some jobs. I got one, a pretty good one. And I got the offer and I visited. And then I was just like, this isn't the job I want. I would have been fine working a 9 to 5, but I was like, I'm settling. I'm for sure settling for this job right here. So I was like, let me at least take a step back and apply to some other stuff. I'll figure it out. And that's same thing. Perfect timing. I got the call from the Philippines and they're like, hey, do you want to come out here and play in a tournament? I was like, well, I have no job. Might as well. So I packed my bag for literally like a gym duffel bag. I was like, let me put my shoes in here and a couple t-shirts, whatever, go out there. And then now I've been here for 3 years, played pretty well in that tournament, had some other crazy stuff happen, got some offers to play. And then I've just kept it going. I've really been going, not even 1 year at a time, more like 3 to 6 months at a time. And because that LinkedIn job, that was my singular focus, it didn't work out. I'm here today and I couldn't be more thankful. I can't imagine my life without this experience that I've had here. And the crazy thing is too, is it's like, I'm such a straight and narrow guy. My friends make fun of me about it. Go to the best school, get the right job, do this kind of stuff. And it's almost like life at every point has knocked me off that. I went to Wake Forest. Okay, just go to the best school. Basketball would be nice, but just focus on that. Boom, on the team. All right, LinkedIn, that's the right kind of job to get. Boom, knocked into the Philippines. Even with sports cards, if it had not been for the pandemic, no way would I have taken the time to get into sports cards and YouTube. I was literally staring looking at the wall for 12 hours a day. Let me just at least talk to a camera instead of talking to myself all day. And then I turned into something crazy. I guess it's easy to say, like, I've definitely had some luck along the way, but at least how it's been for me, this stuff has just happened and it just all has seemed like it was for a reason.
I'm going to name 3 basketball players and you got to tell me what these 3 have in common. Larry Bird, Derrick Rose, Troy Rike.
Larry Bird, Derrick Rose, and Troy Rike. Am I supposed to know this one?
I'll give you a hint. So in the NBA, there's a thing called bird rights. There's also a thing called the Derrick Rose rule.
Oh.
I don't know if you see where I'm going with this, but Larry Bird and Derrick Rose have rules named after them. What can you tell me about the Troy Rike rule?
I'm taking credit for 2 rules out here. The first one is the Troy Rike rule. It's in the UAP in college here. College is low-key like bigger than the pros in the Philippines.
Yeah.
If people don't know that. Before there was a whole bunch of rules, but they put in a new rule when I first joined. It was that if you graduate from a college outside of the Philippines, you can play 1 year as like a graduate transfer right away. And I was the first person to ever do it. So I played 4 years at Wake Forest and then I played 1 year in the UAP and they called that the Troy Rike rule. My teammate now on Northport, he did the same thing and it's become a big thing. So that they called it the Troy Rike rule. And then the second one that's a little bit less of a claim to fame, but I was supposed to enter the PBA draft. I even entered my name in and then I pulled it out. And then at that point, they really tightened the rules after that. If you skip 2 years, you're banned for life. That was really the time when the PBA started getting super strict. So that one's a little bit more connect the dots, but I think I might have to take credit for that one as well too.
So wait, did playing for the national team come first and then that's what led to national?
I went out and played for the national team in the Philippines, but then after that stint happened, that's not a full-time thing, or at least it wasn't at the time. It was kind of like, what do I do? And if anyone knows anything about the Philippines, there's a lot of rules, there's a lot of politics out here. So you can't just enter the draft. That might have to do something with Manny Pacquiao and the fact that he played for his own team. I don't know. That's what someone told me. That's where the rule came from. I honestly don't know. But regardless, you can't just go straight into the draft. You have to do a whole bunch of stuff first. So I was like, what do I do? It was actually my friend / my coach who recruited me out of high school, who I kept in contact with. He's like, hey, I found this. Wouldn't this apply to you? I was like, yeah, it would. That means I can play. I thought, okay, I'm done with college. Even if I could play, I'm not sitting out a year. No, you can play right away. So it's like, okay, well, it's something to do. We were really brainstorming after the national team stint. It's like, how are you going to afford to stay out here? Because I was telling them too, I need to go get a job. I can't just sit around here and chase my dream living on no money. When that came around, I just took it because it was the way for me to get paid at first and get accustomed to the Philippines.
That's crazy. The birth of that rule was because your friend found a loophole.
I feel like when they wrote the rule, it was so people could transfer from other Philippine universities into the UAAP. It's the main league in the Philippines. They don't want people moving in between those 2 schools. But if they can grab people from other leagues and bring them in, they're like all for it. So they probably put that rule in. Let's go take people from Cebu. Let's make sure they can come have an easy path to the Philippines. But when you read the rule, all it said was non-UAP school graduate. And I was like, okay, well, I'm a non-UAP school graduate. So I don't think they intended it to be what it is now, but I don't think they mind it. It's been a great way to give Phil foreigners the chance to experience Philippine basketball and also introduce them to the fans and kind of in a way.
I'm going to name off a date. I just want to ask you what significance.
I already know what it is. Go name it. I think I already know.
September 19th, 2018.
Oh, I don't know.
I'll give you the De La Salle Green Archers.
Yeah. That's when I got arrested. I feel like I screw the story up whenever I tell it because I still to this day do not know exactly what happened. It was one of my best games for my UAP career. I went to the locker room right after the game. They grabbed me like, you got to go. Like my coaches. I was like, what's going on? What do you mean? So they just like, just follow me. I'm walking to the garage. They're like, there's some people here. They want to talk to you. I was like, what do you mean? What are going on? Then all of a sudden there's a big van and immigration officers downstairs. And they're like, you got to come with us, get in the back. I looked at I was like, are you serious? I was like, no, come on. Like, you don't mean me. They arrested me for being a illegal immigrant. I was like, I have a Philippine passport. They're like, oh no, sir, you can only in the morning, all this stuff. I was like, what are you talking about? So they took me to the holding facility. It wasn't that bad. Like I wasn't in an orange jumpsuit, but I was sleeping on the floor, just in a room. And I was just there. They're like, okay, we'll sort it out tomorrow. And I was just reevaluating my whole life. Didn't know what was going on. And luckily they let me out the next night, but I was in there for 48 hours.
That's crazy.
I don't even know how to explain it, especially to people who maybe aren't from the Philippines, but it was just politics and people and power. And I don't even know what happened, man, but that was a really tough day for me.
And that really complicated your one and done year, yeah?
Yeah, it was a real mix of things. The hype on me was so crazy going in. I played for the national national team. I played at Wake Forest. Like I never remember. I saw an article with why Troy Rike is a better fit for the national team than Jordan Clarkson because there's like certain eligibility rules. I saw that. I swear, I was like, wow. Like the hype was absurd. So I had that, and then so I played my first 2 games, and I did all right. Like I had 8 points, 11 rebounds. Next De La Salle, I think I had like 11 points, 7 rebounds. But those aren't superstar numbers.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm not a superstar though. Like what you guys are disappointed at this, and people were. They were really disappointed. So and talking bad, and then that happened. I just was not ready for that. I was on my own for the first time. I had never been in the spotlight really. Yeah, I did kind of mess up my whole stint. I made my mistakes too. There's a lot of stuff I could have done better, but that really just put a damper on that whole time. I was ready to be done too, especially in that car. Like even my parents were like, "You're coming home. You're done. You're not doing this anymore."
Can't imagine how stressful that whole thing is on top of when you're a Filipino player coming up from America and you have the credentials that you have. How do you deal with that kind of pressure?
I wish I could tell you because I didn't deal with it well at the time. I went too far one way, kind of let the hype get to my head in an extent. The other end, part of me was just like, I quit. I don't care. I mean, it's hard to say I quit, but I was just like kind of depressed. I was like, I'm not working out. I'm not eating. I lost like 30 pounds or something. That obviously didn't help me play. And if I had to go back and give myself advice back then, and I kind of follow it now, lucky enough, I had a pretty good game the other day, and then the hype train was like swelling up. And I was even telling my girlfriend, you can't get too high and you also can't get too low. So that's really what it was. I got way too high on the high. Okay, everyone says I'm the best. I'm the best, man. But then once everyone said I suck, okay, I guess I suck. You're just going to be riding those waves. So now after that game, everyone say, oh my God, first team all rookie you. If I believe everything they're saying now, then sure, I'm going to feel great, but I'm going to have another bad game. It's going to happen. I'm also going to have another good game. This is just the way this stuff works. Just don't get too high on the highs, but also don't get too low on the lows. Like that's really what's helped me the most. And also look on the internet, man. Like when I first started out, like I was Googling myself or Twitter searching yourself. Oh my God, don't do that. When it was good, I was like, oh yeah, they're right. I'm the best. But then after a bad game, if I did that, oh man, that's tough. So there's also some practical habits I have as well. Doc Rivers said this in his Netflix thing, always finish the race. You will be above 99.9% of people if you just finish the race. I told my brother this all the time. If you're in the weight room, there's no reason for you to cheat reps. If you're doing suicides, if we say we're going to do a mile, we're doing a mile. Just putting in that work consistently. And then the second one, I do this with cards and basketball. Get 1% towards your dream every day. Do something. I know that about myself. I'm not going to be in the gym at 5 a.m. It's just not me. I'm sorry. But every single day during the pandemic, I said, I'm going to get better at basketball today. Even if it's just going in the gym and just lifting for 45 minutes. That changed everything for me. Because I think a lot of people think you either have to be Kobe Bryant or you're a failure. It was the same thing, right? With my performance. I was like, I'm not Kobe. I can't this. I didn't even know what to do. It was just like, let's just get back to basics, Troy. Let's just get a little bit stronger every day. Let's get our shots up. Once again, I'm not spending 6 hours in the gym every day, but I've been so consistent with my preparation. And I think that's changed everything for me in terms of basketball.
That's honestly the best way, working towards any goal that you have for yourself. I'll admit, man, I've taken inspiration from you in the last couple months or so. I've kind of been lax when it comes to the content creation. I haven't been working as hard as I should, right? You can make excuses like, personal life, but at the same time, I'm like, if Troy can play pro ball and then he still has time to put out content, I have no excuse. I have absolutely no excuse to be on my thing, especially if this is the thing that I'm trying to do full time. You don't have to put out a freaking movie every single week, as long as you're doing something to work on your growth. For that, thank you, man.
Yeah, for sure. And it's true. It's like you just start something like, let me outline an idea today. You start with that outline and you're like, okay, let me just write down the idea. And then you just keep going, right? And then it's like, oh, this is actually good. I'm enjoying this. Let me just finish this up. Okay, I'll just record an intro. Let's at least get the intro good. And then that just snowballs. It keeps you going. And then the other thing, no excuse, right? Part of it too was, I play pro ball, but especially during the pandemic, like I said, when I get started, this is every content creator story, but I was listening to a little bit of Gary Vee. If you get home at 10 p.m., you got to work. You got to work till 1 a.m. It's just no excuse. And then they're like, oh, yes, Getty, I will work. But it's true though. Like all jokes aside, all these people are chasing their content creation dream or all these different things they want to do. And they have kids and all this kind of stuff. And that's not to say you shouldn't try if you have kids. They're staying up till 1 a.m. I was like, I'm doing nothing. You can put out a video every other day. You can do it. You have no excuse not to do it. And it'll make you happier. So that's kind of just how I looked at it. I have no excuse not to try this content creation thing. I have to lift 45 minutes a day. A video only takes me, especially at the time when it was not as much production, I'm 3 hours door to door, easy on it. Why can I not do this?
That might have been the greatest Gary Vee impression I've heard. Like that was impeccable. One of those things that I'm always super hard on myself. It's like, like, yo, man, if I'm putting out a video, I want to make sure it's like freaking perfect and everything. But at the same time with YouTube, you also got to be consistent. So when you're trying to put out such high quality, but you're trying to do it at such a consistent rate, the burnout's real, right? There's only so much that you can do consistently. It's about not just pacing yourself, but also being realistic with what you can do. Because if you try to push yourself to the point where I'm physically exhausted, because I've had those days too, where I'm just so burnt out from making content, it takes a toll on you.
It does. And I think my girlfriend is a little bit similar, high achieving, attention to detail, wants to make it perfect type of deal.
Yeah.
She'll spend 2 weeks making the video perfect. But
Yeah.
then after that, she's done. She's like, oh, I can't do it anymore. And then she won't post for like 2 months. Even with fitness, right? She'll be like, I'm running 5 miles today. I'm like, just run one.
Yeah.
And maybe this isn't the right advice for everyone, but for me, the biggest thing I found with everything is that consistency is the most important thing. You'll get better. Every video, it may not be perfect, but like that'll help you improve a lot. Just getting that one out and watching it back. Okay, I could do this better. I could do this better. The next one will be better. You just keep building.
It's definitely trying to find that right balance of being an overachiever and trying to do your absolute best, but also being consistent with it. It's all about finding that balance for sure. Yeah.
I've put out videos, especially at the beginning. Everyone has this story. I'm like, man, that was a stinker. Or even if a video is good, I've put out some really good videos that have not done well, but I learned from it and I also tried it. And it leads to something else too. My first ever vlog was bad. It wasn't that good, but my best ever video now was a vlog. That led me to the next thing. Just try it, man. Honestly, that's energized me as well. Let's try a game show. Let's try a vlog. Let's try this. Let's do stuff that you enjoy and let's mix it up a little bit.
You're always trying to adapt and improve. That's what sets apart the great from the rest of the pack. And that's just not just with content, but I feel like I'm getting into like Confucius mode here because I keep pulling out all these random quotes out of my ass. Insanity is doing the same thing over and expecting a different result.
I got one more thing. I'm getting way too deep into like inside baseball content creator talk. My mindset, and I'm not sure if it's the right one, but I see a lot of content creators, especially those that stagnate. They think the audience owes them something. They're like, oh, let me just turn this mic on. They just want to hear what I have to say. This is what I think. Every time I make a video in my mind, I'm coming to the audience like, please watch. What can I do for you? That's how you really have to think of it. Like every video I go into it, I'm like, I'm trying to win over the audience.
Yes.
Like you got to go into the mindset of I'm boring. I'm a scam influencer. I'm this and that. Like that's how I think of it. It's like, how can I really get them to enjoy this video?
Yeah.
And I think that's been the biggest thing for me too. Instead of being complacent, it's like, oh, they're here to see me. They're going to listen to what they get. And you can't go too far the other way too, right? You can't be sellouty or too hard on yourself. But that's been my biggest thing as well. It's like, all right, how can I bring something new to the audience? I need to be better. I need to do this better. And I think that mindset is something I see in common with content creators who have success.
You hit the nail on the head there. My number one rule for creating content is how can I provide value to the audience?
Exactly.
Right? Like you're asking someone to watch your entire video from like start to finish. You're taking time out of that person's day, right? If someone's taking X amount of time out of their day to just consume a video of mine, I got to make it worth it because they're taking time away from something else that they can be doing.
Whether it be entertainment, there's a bunch of different ways to do it, but provide that value.
You had a tweet go semi-viral, but that's mainly because of the thing it was relating to, which was, in my opinion, one of the wildest brawls I've ever seen on a basketball court.
Yeah, what you're alluding to is one of the biggest moments of my life. It's funny, we talked about the whirlwind that was my Philippines adventure, and we haven't even talked about this, which was the craziest part. I'll keep it short, but I was at Wake Forest. I graduated, and the Philippine team wanted me out here like basically right away. So I graduated, then a week later, I was in the Philippines. And then things went well. I got moved up to the main team. We went to Taiwan. We played a game, and then we had a big game against Australia in the Philippines. My mom was there. It was a big deal for everyone. It was packed in there. If you haven't seen it, I would say the majority of people have probably at least heard about it. The Philippines and Australia got into a huge brawl. Thon Maker was there, Matthew Deladova, a bunch of people. It was like all out brawl. And the worst part about it too was what you don't usually see is like the fans were low-key involved. There were chairs flying. It was pretty bad. With the fights breaking out on the floor, and I go up. I was like, okay, everyone else is getting up. It's all a blur. I wasn't really thinking, but there was someone on the floor with people standing over him. And I was just like, get off. Like there's chairs and stuff. I just stood over the person. And then I got knocked off and then all this stuff happened. But it was an Australian player who was on the floor. So it got turned into this big thing. Filipino player protects Australian during this huge brawl. But I wasn't even thinking there's someone on the floor. He's going to get hurt. He's going to get curb stomped. I'm not going to let someone get curb stomped, even though it was totally subconscious. I wasn't thinking that. And then afterwards, it turned into like a pretty big news story.
You were there to protect him, but originally a lot of the media headlines were like Filipino player attacking Australian player, and then it's a photo of you over top of him, but really it's taken completely out of context.
I didn't think I did anything. I was like the front page picture, Filipino player attacks Australian player. I was like, all right, this is what we're not going to do. So I tweeted about it, and then it went super viral, and then it started getting attention, and people actually watched the film. They're like, wait a minute. Yeah, he was definitely not attacking him. I got a reward as well afterwards. Another thing that I didn't expect is the equivalent of like $2,000. I was like, I don't deserve a reward for this. It wasn't even like a super moral thing. I was just like, why am I going to take this? So I just decided, let's just donate it. That seemed like the most fair thing to me. And then he ended up matching it again, which was really nice. So he sent it to one Filipino charity and one Australian charity as well. And it was nice. It did seem to like unite the countries in a sense too. I saw a lot of positive comments and stuff. We have our differences, but we're all humans on the earth here. If you'll allow me to get somewhat deep for a second. I just felt it was the right thing to do.
You've had a very unique basketball career. Not many people go into a professional league and their rookie year is 25 because of how unique your career's been. When you got drafted into the PBA, was that a moment like you found out right there on the spot, or was it like they called you right before you're going here?
I don't think anyone's really ever heard this story. I wasn't really nervous at all because the team at number 10 told me, we're going to pick you. This is a great fit. They're even like, okay, don't do well at this workout, all this stuff. And I was even thinking, this is my worst case scenario. Not worst case, but I was like, I will not go lower than number 10. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'm chilling. I might go 7, I might go 8, but 10 will always be there. So it was nice as well. It was kind of a Zoom, which is tough because you want that experience. But for me, I'm somewhat of an anxious person. So it was better for me in a potentially anxious time to just be at home. So I'm at home, it's going, I'm chilling. I'm like, okay, all right, here we go. Number 8, I didn't get picked. Okay, no worries. It looks like it's number 10. Number 10 comes, I do not get picked. I'm looking at my phone. I'm like, okay, when's the call coming? I didn't get picked. So at that point, I was like, what is going on? Because you don't know how far you're going to drop. Number 12, I think, didn't really need a big, just all this stuff. I was freaking out. So that moment when number 10 got selected and I saw that guy come up and I'm like, that is not me. I was freaking out. Luckily enough, I got drafted the pick after number 11 to a team I hadn't worked out with, hadn't really talked to. So it resolved itself really quickly and it worked out great. Like I love my team. It's turned out for the best. Like I really feel this is the best case situation for me, but that particular moment was really, really tough.
Imagine getting a promise and then it's not you. You're like, wait, where am I going now? It's almost like your future's up in the air where it's like, wait, if I didn't go here, where the heck am I going to go?
Exactly. You go through every negative scenario in your head. Is there like a sex tape I don't know about or something? Maybe someone just doesn't like me. Has everyone been lying to me? Was this all one big charade? So I was just like, man, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. As humans, we're always programmed to think the absolute worst.
Yeah.
Something doesn't go how we expect it to. Playing at Wake Forest, you didn't play a whole lot, right? What was that transition like? Now you're playing heavy minutes.
Yeah. The Wake Forest situation was really interesting because it prepared me to play in a non-starring role with some of the best players in the world for 4 years. That's all I learned. And our coach Manning, who you referred to, he was so strict, like don't mess up, don't do all this stuff. So that's really how I learned to play basketball. Nice. And that's good and bad. It kind of showed in the UAAP. I'm not a superstar type player. I didn't get the minutes or even in practice to be the type of guy who's putting up shots. So that's just not a part of my game. But also at the same time, I was guarding John Collins every single day. And let's get it straight. He gave me buckets. I could not guard him, but I was able to at least survive out there. Like if you can't even give them a look, you can't be on the team. Like you got to go. I even said it. I remember after my last UAAP game, they're like, what happened? All this stuff. I kind of called it. I said, I didn't have the stats I wanted or maybe people expected. The bad news is, even if we did this again, you put me in high school, guess what my stats would still be? 9-9. That's what I am. But also at the same time, I know for a fact I can play with the best players in the world. I know I can survive and I can do that. I still have a lot of work to do, but I was never scared. I know I can fit in and I can do my role here in the PBA. And I think so far that's what I've kind of shown. It's like, hey, this guy belongs here. He's not backing down from anyone. And I've always known that about myself. Like I said, there's a lot of work to do, but I kind of knew inside this whole time, I'm not going to have a shock. It's not going to be like, oh my, everything is so fast. These guys are so tall. That's not going to happen to me because I've experienced the top level. That doesn't mean I won't have bad games or I won't have to make adjustments. There will not be a shock for me where there are for certain players, oh my God, my little shimmy move isn't working anymore because guys are now 6'10". I'm not going to have that. My stuff is programmed to play against these best players.
Hey man, I watched the highlights from your last game. It showed that you're a San Francisco guy because you were making it rain.
My teammates were like, I knew you were from the Bay. I didn't know you were Steph Curry. Grave, Steph Curry? Like, in Tagalog, the stuff they were saying. It was a nice moment. Hey, if I'm open, I'm going to take my shot. And they just happened to go in that game. So it was nice to kind of have my little breakout game already.
How's your Tagalog been? Because I saw this video you did with Rappler. They had you speaking in Tagalog. And I'm just like, oh man, you sound like a fob trying to speak Tagalog, man. It's just like, oh.
Man, you found everything. I didn't even know some of these videos were still up. Yeah, my Tagalog is not very good. The good and bad thing about the Philippines is everyone speaks English here. If I was in Spain or something, I would have been good on Spanish because you got to learn it to survive. So yeah, I'm pretty used to speaking English. So my Tagalog is not very good. But to be fair, my mom lost most of it. Like she didn't really speak it too much to me growing up. So if anything, I put the blame on her.
I feel like a lot of different Filipino households, it's either the parents have completely lost it and then the kid doesn't learn it at all, or they instill it in you because they only speak it in the house. Like with my parents, they made a point to always speak it while I was at home. Even if I was talking to them in English, they would always respond in Tagalog. So it would be ingrained in my head.
You had the Joe Coy experiences.
Yes, exactly that.
That's your childhood.
Yeah, it's exactly that. Spot on. That's spot on. We started out talking cards. I want to close it off by talking cards. Do you feel like that's somewhat of an escape from basketball?
Yeah, I would say it is in a sense. It's funny you mentioned that. I've definitely gravitated a little bit more towards soccer cards lately. It was already an escape doing basketball cards, but doing soccer cards is even more of an escape because it's just something completely different. I was thinking about this just the other day. If your identity is only one thing, it's a tough way to live, man. The ups and downs hit you so much harder. I honestly think you'll do better in whatever you do if you have that balance in your life where you have something else. Before I would come home from practice, if I had a bad day of practice, it was just like, well, watching Netflix isn't making me feel any better. I suck at basketball and that's it. But now it's like having that, it's like, tough day at practice, but I got a sponsorship deal today. Let's make sure we knock this out. It's been amazing for me having something else to shift my focus on and have another outlet. It's been huge for me.
I appreciate you taking the time out from the pro baller life to hop on the podcast. I gotta say, my wall, I need to change it up a bit. I'm gonna need a Northport or a Gilas jersey up here with Rike on the back. You gotta hook it up for me, bro.
I got you, man. It's the least I can do. I can confidently say this is the best interview I've ever done. So that's the least I can do. I'll be interested to see how the heck you work out editing on this thing, but one way or another, I'm sure it'll be fun.
The fun part is doing the interview. The meat and bones of it is editing it all together. So I appreciate it, bro.
I look forward to hearing the finished product.